Chapter 9, Case File SI-01, Chapter Hero, Case Progress. On the first day of work, Tarn woke up early in the morning to exercise. He cooked an easy breakfast like toast, a fried egg, and a hot dog. Since he had zero skill in cooking, he picked fried food as his option. The slim figure bustled around the kitchen, arranging his cooked items on a dish. A few moments later, he carried everything to the table and began eating while playing on his phone. Ding dong! Timor, want to have lunch together today? Tarn read that message and responded that he wasn't sure. Today, he sensed that he would be swamped with work and couldn't break free to do any other activities. The team still couldn't find the murderer in this case, and he didn't know if the criminal who surrendered to the police was the real murderer. They still couldn't come up with a resolution or investigation guideline, so he possibly had no spare time at all. Ding dong! Timor, if you're free, please contact me back. I have some free time in the afternoon. I want to celebrate your joining DSI. A smile curled on Tarn's lips. He never said no to a free meal. He typed back as to say yes, then grabbed toast, along with an egg and a hot dog, to munch before taking a shower and getting himself ready for the office. DSI office. The DSI's dress code was a black suit with a white shirt. In fact, the policy didn't restrict the style, but simply required a black or dark suit layered on a shirt. He had considered wearing a light blue shirt at first, but it might be too vibrant, so a white shirt would be a safer play and more appropriate. Beep! Tarn tapped his card on the glass door, unlocking it to get access. Tarn walked into the building and peeped at his wristwatch. The working hours would start in 5 minutes. So he was here in the nick of time, almost late. Tarn quickened his pace to the conference room and knocked on the door 3 times before pushing in. Was he the only one they were waiting for? You're late, Tarn, Captain reproached with a stern voice. Tarn flashed a sheepish smile, then positioned himself next to Yai with a face of guilt. Ajima didn't want to ruin the atmosphere of the first day of work that was yet to start, so she tried not to complain about Tarn too much. Instead, she turned her attention to a group wearing blue shirts with DSI badges added with the text Forensic Science, while another group wore white gowns with the DSI emblem on the chest pocket, indicating the Forensic Medicine section. This is the Forensic Science team and our forensic medical doctors. Another section that hasn't finished its recruiting process is the toxicology team, but they will be joining us in the next few days. Tarn swept his gaze through the group of people who wore impassive expressions, standing in front of him one by one. The personnel of the forensic science team and the forensic medicine team were many, roughly 30 people. They all have undergone the intense recruiting process just like you, Ajima uttered, aiming that the people from her team would be respectful toward them. You mean to carry the log? Ouch! Kem lifted his hand to hold his stomach instantly, showing a distorted face once he was hit by Yai's deadly elbow, who managed to keep his straight face on the side. Seeing their demeanor, the members from the forensic science side tried not to laugh. Then appeared a woman in a white gown. From her look, she should be the same age as their captain. She stood right next to Ajima and revealed a broad smile toward Ajima's subordinates. Looks like it wasn't hard for us to get along, Sam, the woman said to Ajima. Right. Oh, let me introduce her. This is Dr. Maris, my high school friend, and the chief of the forensic medicine department. Nice to meet you, everyone. We wish for you to for your harmonized cooperation with our medical examination team. As soon as she finished, Dr. Marys told the autopsy team to introduce themselves one after another. Later, after the autopsy medic's speech, the forensic science individuals who were responsible for the criminalistic stepped forward.
I'm KJ, the Chief of Crime Scene and Crime Analysis under the Forensic Science Department. Nice to meet you.
A serious-looking man said with a grim face. It was difficult to gauge if he was happy about this collaboration, but, assuming from the bright glint of his eyes, Tarn was confident that he was one of the most resolute men. When Mr. KJ finished his introduction, he later passed it to the subdivision officers to introduce themselves sequentially. Those said divisions included the individuals of the Biological Science Unit, responsible for DNA identification, and those in the Chemistry Unit, responsible for examining gunshot residue (GSR), fingerprints, footprints, and other tasks related to evidence tracing. Once the self-presentation ceremony was done, they briefly exchanged handshakes. Tarn approached a male forensic scientist, standing still with no one talking to him. "Hello, I'm Tarn." That man turned around to look at him and slightly lifted the corner of his mouth before stretching out to grip his hand and gently shook it.
Nice to meet you. I'm Vit.
Tarn gave a cozy smile to him and drew back when Najima signaled them to separate for each of their duties. Tarn reunited with his group. Out of the blue, Tarn could suddenly feel the icy cold sensation at the nape of his neck, causing the wisps to bristle as if being touched by someone or something.
Darn. Why the heck are you still standing there?
Kaya asked when he caught his buddy didn't move his butt to follow him to the conference room. But Tarn took Pious' words for granted. He held his motion and listened to something that was talking beside his ear. The cool breeze of whisper was trickling, bringing a buzzing sound into his ear. That voice dropped out like a lost signaled phone call. It was one that anybody shouldn't be able to hear, but Tarn could hear. Tarn! Yes? Tarn snapped out of his stupor, looking at Ojima's face in a daze. When he realized his own awkward action, he rushed to his own chair and had a seat. But Ojima lifted her finger for him to come over instead. Tarn hurriedly approached her, then, "Ouch! Why did you hit me, Captain?" The female captain hit Tarn in the head with a fat, thick file. "Today, did you know you shamed me in front of the other sections? Not to mention you're lost in space, just like those who aren't ready for work. Or do you need me to have you run around the building's backyard first, huh? Answer me!" "I'm sorry, Captain," said Tarn somberly. His gaze fell downward as he admitted his guilt without argument. Hajime let out a heavy breath. Once she rebuked him until she had her fill, she inhaled deeply to suppress her frustration. "Get back to your seat. We will continue our meeting from where we left off yesterday." Hajime composedly told the team, shifting her gaze to Singh and Tongtai to show the report. Tarn, on the other hand, returned to his seat. Kaya asked Tarn with concern.
You're okay?
Tarn smilingly nodded. To be hit like that, he could handle it just fine. But he had never imagined that when the captain lost her cool, she could be this scary. With such character, he didn't know if she had a boyfriend. If she did, that man would be a massively poor thing.
The plan for today is we will separate it in groups on the field to the victims' houses of those who were assaulted by the deceased. Interview them for necessary information, and if we suspect that they might get involved, then later in the afternoon, we will draft a murderer's profiling.
Finished his speaking, Singh pressed the presentation remote onto the next one.
Tong Tai and I will stay here at the department, collaborating with the forensic science and forensic medicine department. Mr. Yai and Kem, please visit the first and the third victims' houses. Mr. Tarn and Paya, Please visit the second victim. Tong Tai picked up a blue box, opened it up, and raised a rectangular gadget resembling a black mobile phone. Every victim's information we kept was kept in here. After ending his sentence, he handed it to every team member. It looked like there were 7 gadgets, just right for them. This is a gadget I recommended Captain to buy from the USA. There is a GPS map, victims' information, or many cases worldwide gathered for you to read, including ours, which will be uploaded here. I will keep it updated for everyone. Awesome! Kem exclaimed. Ajima feigned a cough, telling Kem to reserve his attitude before adding up with a solemn expression. I hope that you will all take good care of it. I think it's not necessary for me. Yai expressed that he didn't care about reading at all. He was never fond of reading. Necessary or not, you will need to have it with you, said Ajima with a hard tone. No more words from Yai. He just slipped it into the pocket. Looks like a Kindle. Kaya flipped the new toy back and forth, studying it with interest. Tong Tai nodded. Yes, it's Kindle, but I had my friends in the US modify it a little, making it smaller. My friends run a startup company. Alright, so everybody knows your duty. The information is in. How should I call it? Kind would be okay. Now, you can go do your task. Yes, ma'am. 6 men stood up to salute and left the conference room together. Ajima's eyes followed their backs. She let out a long sigh as she fell back against the backrest and rested her eyes. Being in charge of them is not a walk in the park. Tarn followed Payat to the car, with Pi walking up to comfort him. No, to reiterate that he was late. But for Tarn, it wasn't late. This was called being on time, so he got another bang. Yai turned to Paya and asked him to take good care of Tarn. He always acts quirky. I'm afraid that he would get kicked out by the folks. Yai ended the conversation with a remark. Get the hell out of here, Pi! If you dropped by just to highlight my flaw, please don't come. Tarn nudged Yai's back to Ken's direction and shifted his gaze toward Paya with a frowning visage. Gonna chew me out too? He swayed his head in denial and motioned for Tarn to board the car. If they kept prolonging their chit-chat, it would get them nowhere. Nowhere. Tarn got inside the car and picked up Kine, as recently named by Captain, to search for the second victim's information. Confused? Okay, I'll repeat it. To search for the information of the second victim abused by the second deceased. Where? At XXX. Kaya veered the car along the street that would take them to the XXX. If he could remember it correctly, it was a slum quarter. Kaya frowned. Is this the first victim's house? Right, and it's near the crime scene too. The second victim of this case is a local, so it was no surprise that he committed his crime around the area. Kaya nodded, and no further conversation was made between the two. Each of them sank into thoughtful silence. Tarn was thinking of something that wanted to communicate with him. That sound inserted itself into his head, so low that he could barely hear. Help him. Please, help him. Help who? Tarn ruminated that sentence over and over. Or would there be a fourth victim? As Tarn was pondering about this matter, Paya, on the other hand, was thinking over his own dream. That woman named Vanrisa, and many things beyond his belief. He wondered what exactly happened in his past. Paya, make a turn to the alley right there, Tarn reminded. Paya followed what Tarn said, but after turning into that alley, they decided to take a walk because the alley was too narrow that they couldn't drive in. Both men navigated according to what the map in kind told them.
The minute that the red marker pinned its location to where they were standing, they found the house number also matched the information Tong Tai gave them. Kaya knocked on the door. Soon, the old wooden, dark brown door cracked open, revealing a figure of a middle-aged woman with a long face. Who's your visit for? If you're here to sell insurance, I'm not interested. You can leave. No, Auntie, we're here to see Miss Chidlom, Tarn voiced before she shut the door to them. She furrowed her brows questioningly, examining Tarn and Paya from head to toe, then broadly opened the door. Who are you? And what are you here for? She questioned with a curt voice. This might be Miss Chidlom. Paya showed her his badge and introduced himself.
We are from DSI. We have some questions to ask you, madam.
Police? What do you want to know from me? Chidlum crossed her arms while leaning against the door, glancing at Tarn and Paya suspiciously. About Mr. Tamrong, said Tarn. Isn't he dead? Tarn and Paya exchanged gazes. She didn't say anything but lit a cigarette, waiting for the questions from the two cops. Yes, ma'am. We don't know how much you know about him, so could you please share it with us? Chidlum chuckled in her throat. Ha! You think I killed him? Someone like me? Even though he raped me, let's not forget that he was actually my daughter's father. Chidlum said with a stern voice. Her bloodshot eyes stared right at Tarn and Kaya, then lifted a cigarette to smoke. If it wasn't for the social stigma her parents felt, she would have aborted the unborn baby. But this, because her family wasn't as comfortable as the others, she had to bear the burden of raising this kid according to her parents' order, inevitably. Well, that's enough. I don't want to answer any more questions. She was tired and didn't feel like stirring the ashes of that terrible past too often. It wasn't the best thing to remember, but her life right now was nothing to cause suffering either. She considered it was good enough that she could get. May I ask where your daughter is? I also have a few questions to ask her. Chidlom whipped up her gaze toward Tarn and yelled at him with a dark, high-pitched voice. I'm not going to answer! Neither does my daughter! Once finished speaking, she slammed the door shut in their faces. Tarn and Taya discussed through their eyes what to do next. The minute they got in the car, Taya offered the option to see her daughter at the charity school near this residential area. They entered the school and asked to see teacher Chid-chan. After waiting at the table under a mango tree for a moment, a woman with a round-shaped face and a rather thin figure, who wore herself in a brown A-line skirt and light pink shirt, walked up to them. Would both of you like to see me? She possessed a docile and calm demeanor, far different from her mother's. Chid-chan took a seat opposite Tarn and Paya. She studied them for a second before voicing. Are you police officers? Yes, we're here for some questions about your Mr. Tamrong? Yes. Her relationship with him would be so poor that she resisted calling him father. Furthermore, she gleamed a vacant, apathetic look once she mentioned him. Tarn discreetly analyzed. He's dead already, isn't he? Then what's your question?
He was murdered.
Kaya couldn't even finish speaking. She got through his speech. I knew that. She turned to give Kaya the answer. And one more thing you should know is that he and I never get in touch. If you would like to seek his information from me, I think you're wasting your own time. Her voice detached as she spoke, lifting a wristwatch to look. Please excuse me. It's time for class. Once she finished, she rose to her feet and instantly left. Unflinchingly, Tarn's eyes followed her gaze and thought, because this woman had a strong mother, she grew up as a strong woman just like her mother.
Let's go. There are two more places that we have to visit.
Hearing Paya say so, Tarn followed the tall figure to their vehicle. However, his attention was still attached to her unwaveringly.
Keep watching her for that long. You like her?
Huh? Tarn averted his gaze back to Paya. Like who?
He drifted.
Tarn recalled Paya's former sentences and abruptly rejected them. It's not because I like her, and I didn't drift. I watched her because I had some doubts.
About what? Miss Chid-chan?
Yep,
She was too calm and flatly refused.
said Paya while turning the car down the main road. Her demeanor looked as if there was something she didn't want them to discover.
She's definitely hiding something.
Paya was dead sure that she knew some significant information about this case, but she didn't want to share it with them. Tarn agreed with Paya. Chid-chan was trying to conceal something. His nose could sniff out her suspicion. However, this might not be the best time to hassle her. They still needed more evidence to support their assumption, but what they had so far was good enough after all. The clue, despite how small it was, could lead them down the right path in their investigation. Once done interviewing Miss Chidchan's family, Haya took Tarn to two more victims' houses, but no further beneficial disclosure. Despite their interviewees' cooperative effort, regardless a shed of their unwillingness, they tried to respond to Tarn and Paya's inquiries. After conducting the three victims' interviews, they both headed to the department and reported their findings to Tong Tai for analysis. DSI office. Singh wore a medical mask, examining each part of the corpse that Dr. Maris pointed out for him, along with her guidance on how these marks and wounds were caused before letting out a sigh. No fingerprints, scalp hair, or body hair of the murderer were found at all. It might be because the corpse had been cleaned earlier.
Could it be possible that the person who did this has some sort of specialized skills?
Dr. Maris pulled down the medical mask, picked up the forensic chartboard, and looked at it. We have the internet these days, Singh. The murderer can work in any field and search for ways to conceal their identity online.
I'm sure that they are an expert.
Singh reaffirmed his statement, then thanked Dr. Maris for sparing her time to take him to review the trays on the dead body for half a day. If I find more testimonies, I'll tell you ASAP.
Yes,
Singh nodded in acknowledgement. He had other tasks to attend to, so he strode into his office room. Seeing Pius' team and Yai had already returned, Singh greeted them.
hi. What you've got?
Gotta yell, damn it, Cam said in disappointment. That one suspect, an unofficial suspect, Tarn said with a smile. Singh slightly raised his eyebrow.
A suspect? Not really. She behaved like she was hiding something. The report is with Dong Tai.
Hearing Paya say so, Singh walked up to see it with Thong Tai.
The daughter of the second victim?
Singh pondered before writing on the whiteboard that she was abused by the second victim.
From me, I got a woman who freaked out and refused like crazy. That she had nothing to do with it before I could even ask. Now, she's in the interrogation room.
Said Yai. She acted very suspiciously, so he brought her to the department for interrogation.
Hmm, this means we've made a lot of progress.
Singh murmured with shimmering eyes before telling his own progress with the friends. Tarn stroked his chin and uttered, he seemed so deliberate, didn't he?
But there's more about it. I have checked on a possibility.
Tong Tai said while flipping the monitor screen towards them.
What is it? I can guess. I can't guess.
Yai asked in confusion. But not only Yai, the others couldn't guess what it was either. Tong Tai
flipped the monitor back to himself, and typed something for a second before turning the monitor toward the team again. It was the possibility of those who could be a murderer, expressed as a percentage. I tried using a program to mimic Singh's theory of how accurate his thought is. Quite a huge number. 80%, said Kem. Here is what I thought. Not only we can find the evidence, but the point is, how could the murderer know whom he had to kill? And how could he know that the ones to kill are rapists? Singh shared his doubts with his friends. It was true that the victim came to report the crime to them, but it wasn't big news. Also, the victim herself discreetly reported it as she didn't want it to be on the news. There was no way that this would leak to the outsiders' ears. Even though it would, it must have been very few. Everybody dipped his head to agree with Singh. The ones who could get access to such information must have been those who worked in their field. While everyone was losing in their preoccupation, Captain Ajima brought someone to the visitor's room. She was a woman who draped herself in a red dress, contrasting her radiant white skin, and teasing six men's eyes to her direction. Who's that? Who Captain Som brought in? Pivoted to Singh, but Singh shook his head. He had no idea either. Raya let out a heavy breath. Tong Tai voiced, don't you guys think her face was familiar? Everyone stared at the woman meticulously but couldn't come up with the answer until Singh plopped out. That was the woman in Pai's fake picture! Ah! Him, Yai, and Tarn exclaimed in sync. Tarn, come with me. Haya loosely looped his arm around Tarn's neck before dragging the slim figure for a time out together. He walked past his captain, whose mouth was hanging open to tell Paya that someone wanted to see him. No sooner had she told him, Paya walked right through her as if she wasn't there. Ajima made a cheek bulge with her tongue, then swiveled to Singh's team questioningly. They all jiggled their heads harmoniously, didn't know, didn't see, and didn't relate in any way. What did you drag me out for? Tarn softly moaned. Paya whispered. You gotta help me. Huh? Help what? Tarn was poised to ask, but Paya had already opened the door to the visitor's room. As soon as the stunning woman in a bright red dress saw Paya, she beamed a broad smile, approached to encircle her arm around his, and pushed Tarn away with her booty to back off Paya. Tarn watched this beautiful lady in red and shook his head. The woman these days, would it bother her much to take the other side of Paya's arm? No. Why jump on men first like that? It was disgraceful for a woman. Hmm, that was what Tarn's mom would say. Pipaya, we haven't seen each other for so long. I wanted to meet you many days ago, but I didn't have free time. So today I visited your office, thinking of having lunch with you. She spoke while swaying her body around to please him, making up her voice like a kitty cat. If someone had done it this way to Tarn, he would have given her all. Haya pulled his arm back from her clinging, looking at her face reluctantly. I'm sorry, V. I have another appointment today. They didn't only talk, but Paya also nestled his arm around Tarn's shoulder. Tarn's eyes opened wide. Wait, what is it about me? And don't tell me this is what he wanted me to help? Paya winked at him, so Tarn smiled at the woman in a friendly manner. But she quickly averted her face away, crossed her arms, and looked at him with insulting eyes. Hmm. He could understand now why Paya called for his help. This is Tarn, my homie. So, will you choose to have lunch with him instead of me? You work with him all day and still want to have lunch together? We only see you once in a blue moon. She started whining displeasingly, staring at Tarn frustratedly
as he stole their lunchtime between her and Paya. What? Why vent it on me? Tarn shifted his gaze to Paya. The other person still firmly refused.
I really can't go.
So, I'll go with you, she begged Paya with a crystal clear voice, contrary to the dark, forceful glare she gave him. I hope you don't mind. The striking woman pressed her voice down low to ask him, gleaming a coercive look while pressuring him to say yes. A burden as a middle person. Paya gave her a reproaching sight.
I said I can't go, and I mean it.
Why? When we had.
Our relationship was over, V.
But we.
Don't forget the promise you gave to me.
She told him that was the only time and would never mess with him again. He thought that she would keep her promise. She, on the other hand, was attached to him even more. Despite his blatant refusal, she still didn't give up following him everywhere. Pipanya!
I have to discuss my work with my friend. Please excuse me.
Haya cut-circuited with a stern voice and folded his arm around Tarn and walked out together, leaving Bipawadi to stomp her feet in disgruntlement. Why, why Pipaya never had his eyes on her at all? Wasn't she pretty enough? Thinking of how he once owned her intimately, he should have been somehow infatuated with her. But the outcome was contrary to what she had expected. Why? Why did she never catch his affectionate eye on her? Hipaya. You should go have lunch with her. Be considerate, Tarn remarked in the car while they were on their way to Paya's acquaintance's restaurant when Tarn himself sent the message to meet up with Timor there.
If I did, she wouldn't forget about me.
How decisive of you. If so, why did you make it with her in the first place? Since Paya pulled him in to meddle, he wanted to intrude a bit more. Paya sighed.
That was an emergency. I was drugged.
It was an unforeseen circumstance. If he was in the right mind, he would never do such a thing with Bipawadi. Tarn swayed his head. Under the influence of drugs was partially true, but you should blame it on yourself too.
When getting a hard on, you expect me to starve myself?
A woman served herself on a plate. How could he manage to resist? And he wasn't a good guy too. Tarn didn't say anything further. The more he said, the worse things got, so he'd better not share his thoughts about his body. This was Pious' side he had never seen before. Tarn sighed. Then his eye caught the star-shaped restaurant sign reading Darawan, meaning they had reached their destination. It wasn't far from their department, so he could eat here often. And it was on the way back to his condo, so it seemed convenient for him to drop by and have a dinner take home. This restaurant looks nice, said Tarn while looking over the place. It was a white restaurant decorated in an English garden style. Pius smiled widely.
Surely it does. I helped the restaurant owner decorate it.
Yeah?
You're making a face like you don't believe me.
Paya wiggled to unfasten the seatbelt after cutting off the car engine. Tarn twisted his face. He didn't respond to Paya but complained privately. Right. He didn't believe it. Tarn budged himself to release the seatbelt too, but he couldn't, no matter how hard he tried. Is your car broken, Daddy? Why can't I release my seatbelt?
You're a weak ass and blame it on my car.
Paya grumbled before leaning over to help Tarn release it. Came a click sound soon after. Then Tarn and Paya faced up in unison. Done! Tarn beamed a smile to Paya in delight, so he could finally go grab some lunch. Freaking famished by now. Paya, startled, looked at Tarn. At first glance, when his eyes met Tarn's in a close range, Van Visa's facade overlapped Tarn's features. You. What? Faya reached out to grab Tarn's cheeks, slid his hand down to the chin, and flipped it back and forth, causing Tarn to shriek. What the hell are you doing?
You look so much like her.
Faya mumbled unconsciously. He had just noticed that Tarn and Van Visa looked so much alike. Like who?
Like,
The knocking sound on the side view mirror caused Tarn and Paya to withdraw themselves. Once Tarn saw that the one who knocked was Timur, Tarn got out of the car to reach for him. Timur!
are you alright? I saw you pulled up for a long time but didn't get off, so I came to check.
Dr. Shalatorn asked with a smile. Nothing, we were just talking.
Oh,
Paya stepped out of the car and pressed the remote lock. He took a glimpse at Tarn with curiosity, then greeted Dr. Shalatorn.
I'm sorry for bothering you. That's alright. More people, more fun. Enjoy your meal to the max. It's my treat.
Said Dr. Shalatorn in a friendly manner before holding Tarn's hand and striding in, leaving Paya behind to watch their backs in confusion. What did he do to frustrate Dr. Shalatorn? The doctor glared at him with dark eyes. End of chapter 9.